If you're visiting beautiful Rocky Mountain National Park, one of the best ways to enjoy the park for your whole visit is to camp. And today I wanted to talk to you about some of my favorite places to camp and also how to get a site so that you can get one of those hard to get camping reservations. My name is Ash. I'm a former park ranger and the founder of Dirt in My Shoes, and I absolutely love Rocky Mountain National Park. I try to get there as often as I can. I'm from Utah, so it's not too long of a drive for me, and it's just one of those parks that gets better the more you go. And so I'm really excited for you to take your trip to Rocky Mountain. And today I just wanted to share my tips and tricks for getting a campsite reservation in Rocky, and also even which campground you want to try for or which one you want to add into your plans. So let's get started. Let's talk about your camping options in Rocky Mountain National Park. Okay, so Rocky Mountain National Park has 5 front country campgrounds. So these are ones that you can drive to with your car. Today, I am not talking about any backcountry options, anything that you have to backpack to or hike to and get a permit for. These are front country options. And the unique thing about Rocky Mountain is that there actually are no lodges in the park. And so if you want to stay in the park, you have to camp. This is really surprising to me just because this park is so busy all the time. A lot of people visit this park. And so it is surprising that there's no in-park lodging besides the campgrounds. But I really love it. I feel like it gives the park a different feel, especially if you're able to get up early in the morning or stay up later than a lot of people. You get to enjoy the Rocky experience in a different way because you're staying in the park. So again, 5 front country campgrounds, and let's talk about them and kind of where I would aim to stay, especially as a first-time visitor. Okay, so looking at the map of Rocky Mountain National Park, I just want to show you where these campgrounds are. So you've got one campground over here on the west side of the park. You've got Timber Creek. The west side of the park is a lot quieter than this area over here where you can see all these roads and things. It does stay pretty quiet. The town of Grand Lake is down here. That's the entrance on this side. And it is a much quieter and just more peaceful experience staying on this side of the park. So if you're hoping to stay in the park and you're on the west side, your only option really is Timber Creek. Timber Creek is interesting because unfortunately this whole area was really heavily impacted by the bark beetle. And the bark beetle gets into the trees and it kills the trees. And so they actually had to basically clear cut this area. And so the campground doesn't have a lot of shade as of right now because a lot of those trees were hazard trees and had to be removed. So it's a good location if you're wanting to be on the west side of the park. It is a little bit further away from most of the activities that you probably will want to be doing as a first-time visitor. And so if I'm staying on the west side of the park, I will also usually book something on the east side of the park as well, just to get me closer to the Bear Lake area of the park. So I'm not having to drive up and over the Trail Ridge Road every day. So keep that in mind. But if you are looking for a quieter experience, if you're wanting to try your luck at seeing moose, there's often moose on this side of the park. It's really cool. But it is a more laid back and quiet experience staying in the Timber Creek campground. This campground is reservation only and it's open seasonally. So typically from the end of May through the fall is when you'll be able to stay in this campground. Okay, moving on this map. So this is the Trail Ridge Road here. This is the main road through the park. And you're going up to over 12,000 feet along this road. So this is a climb. You're climbing up. And then you're climbing back down over to the east side of the park, which is the busy, this is where all the crowds are. This is where most people stay. So you have 3 main options. If you're wanting to be close to all of the main stuff to do in Rocky, you've got Aspen Glen up here, and then you've got Glacier Basin down here. Both of these are good. I mean, it really doesn't matter. If you want to be a little bit more centralized on the east side of the park, then you can camp in the Moraine Park Campground, which is kind of, the central area between the two. But really, all of these campgrounds are pretty comparable. I've stayed in all 3. you are close to everything regardless of which one you choose. And so it doesn't really matter. What you'll want to look at is the season that they're open. So Aspen Glen and Glacier Basin are actually open a little bit shorter even than the Timber Creek campground on the west side. So their season is typically a little bit shorter. Moraine Park is open year round, and so that's really convenient. And then you want to look, if you have an RV or something, you'll want to look at the length limits because like Aspen Glen is a little bit tighter turns and harder to get into. So the length limit for that one is different than, say, Moraine Park, where you can get something a little bit bigger in the campsites. So, but between the three, honestly, they're all really nice. If you're there in the fall, I love being in like the Moraine Park or Glacier Basin area because a lot of elk hang out down there. You can hear them bugling from your campsite. So that's really cool. But otherwise, from all three, you can easily access the Trail Ridge Road. You can get to the Bear Lake Road pretty easily too. And so it just really doesn't matter which one you stay in. Just find a site that will work for you and then enjoy your time in Rocky from that campground. So again, Aspen Glen here, Moraine Park here, and Glacier Basin here. This is the Bear Lake Road down here. So this area of the park stays super busy. Then you've got the Trail Ridge Road up and over here. So again, you know, Moraine Park and Aspen Glen kind of straddle that Trail Ridge Road, which makes it really nice. You'll also want to note that Moraine Park and Glacier Basin both are shuttle stops. So Rocky Mountain runs a free park shuttle along the Bear Lake Road, again, because that area just gets so bogged down by crowds and, you know, it's really hard to get parking in there. And so something that's nice that you will want to consider if you're not wanting to drive your own vehicle into the Bear Lake area of the park, you can stay at Moraine Park or Glacier Basin and the shuttle can pick you up from there. So that's a nice perk if you can get into one of those. But again, you know, you're not that far away from Bear Lake from any of the three campgrounds. And so if you just need to get up early and drive in there, it's pretty convenient for that. Okay, and then your last campground, front country campground in Rocky Mountain is Longs Peak. And this one is down here. It's south of Estes Park. So Estes Park is like the main town that most people stay in. This is where you've got a lot of souvenir shops and grocery stores, restaurants, lots of options here. If you don't want to camp, or even if you are camping, there's options in Estes Park. Anything that you need, you can find there. But the Longs Peak campground is down here. So it's really close to the Longs Peak trailhead. And Longs Peak is really famous in Rocky Mountain National Park because it's one of those peaks that is over 14,000 feet above sea level. And in Colorado, a lot of people try to get to they're called 14ers. They try to get to the top of all the 14ers. And so Longs Peak is one of those. A lot of people like to come to Rocky and stay in the Longs Peak campground because it's right next to the trailhead. And then you can get up early and you can climb to the top of Longs Peak. So that's primarily who uses that campground. It's a tent-only campground. There's no running water. And so you've got pit toilets. And you need to bring in your own water and pack out your own trash. So it is definitely way more primitive than the other four campgrounds that we've already talked about. So if you are interested in being, a little bit further removed from other things in Rocky, and if you're planning on climbing to the top of Longs Peak, then the Longs Peak campground is a good option for you. Side note here, just a little tip is if you're not able to get anything actually in the park, if those camping reservations have already been snatched up, then there are some other options that I like just outside of the park. So taking a look at the map again, you'll notice, kind of as you drive down along this way, you're not in the park anymore. So this is the park boundary over here. And so there are some campgrounds down along this way. If you're looking for like a Forest Service type campground, those are good options. Again, you can stay in Estes Park. There's like private RV parks. There's a lot of options in here. There's options like down this road as you're going down the canyon here, so there are options kind of all surrounding Estes Park. Another place that we really like to stay if we're staying on the west side of the park is you can go down past Grand Lake and you go down to the bottom down here. There's this really nice campground down at the bottom of Shadow Mountain Lake that's not very far from Grand Lake and the Kawanichi entrance. So it's not too difficult to find alternative camping options just outside of the park. Again, like this one we really loved. It's a really nice campground. It's set up really nice. And if you're just wanting to be on the quieter side and closer to Grand Lake, it's a really good option. So you do have options here. I would recommend trying to get in the park first. It is such a cool experience camping in Rocky Mountain National Park. But if you're not able to get something in there, then there are some options just outside. A couple more things you'll want to note about camping in Rocky. There are no hookups in the park, and so you won't find any hookups in any of these campgrounds. Also, there is a 2-vehicle limit, and they're pretty strict on that. The campsites aren't very big, and so if you have a trailer, then you can have one other vehicle. If you have an RV, you can have a towed, but you are, in a lot of cases, going to have a hard time fitting even those onto your camping parking area. And so you want to keep that in mind, as you're planning out which campsites are going to work for you. Keep in mind that you can only have 2 vehicles, and they hopefully will fit in the length of site that you book. You'll also want to note that each campsite can have up to 8 people. If you have more than 8 people, then you'll need to book a second campsite or look for a group campsite. If you're looking for specific information about any of these campsites or any of the campgrounds, then I do have a full article on Dirt in My Shoes that walks you through these things that you need to know, and it has links to everything, and it will share more about the individual campgrounds. Lastly, this is something that has changed over the past couple of years, and it's kind of bittersweet. I don't know. So it used to be that you could stay 7 nights in each campground during the summer, up to 14 days. But now they've changed it so that you can stay a total of 7 nights in the park per summer or per summer season. And so, if you want to split your time between a couple different campgrounds, you can do like 3 nights in Aspen Glen and 4 nights in Glacier Basin. And then you've hit that 7-night limit, and then you'll need to camp outside of the park if you plan on being in the area any longer. So for most people, this won't apply. Most people don't stay longer than 7 nights. But for those of us that do go to the park and really want to dig in and want to spend a lot of time there, you'll just want to note that that has changed and that it's a 7-day limit. Regardless of if you switch campgrounds or anything, you have 7 days that you can spend in the park. Okay, so let's talk about how to actually get a reservation for a campsite in Rocky Mountain National Park. So 4 of the 5 campgrounds are reservable. The only one that is first come, first serve is Long's Peak. And so if you're hoping to stay at Long's Peak, you'll just need to get there as early in the day as you can, hopefully by mid-morning or so that you can get in there and snatch up a spot before the campground fills. For Timber Creek, Aspen Glen, Glacier Basin, and Moraine Park, you will need to go to recreation.gov and make a reservation. Okay, so I'm at recreation.gov, and this is the website that the Park Service typically uses to make reservations, especially for camping. And so you'll type in Rocky Mountain National Park or select Rocky Mountain National Park, and then you'll go to the camping and day use. And then this will give you choices for the campgrounds that you can reserve. So let's click over to Aspen Glen. Okay, so what you'll want to do is you'll want to make an account on recreation.gov in advance. You don't want to be making an account on the day that you actually have to sign up for your reservations. So do that well in advance. And then you'll want to come into recreation.gov and you'll want to take a look at the camping options available, because you are booking per campsite. It's not just like, I'm making a general booking and then they'll assign me later. You need to know which campsites are going to work for the equipment that you have and, are in the location that you want. And so you'll need to do that research beforehand. You'll want to have a good idea of which campsites will work for you so that when it's time to reserve them, you already know which ones you're going for and which ones you can try to get a reservation for. Okay, so looking on here, and if you want some additional information, I like this season and fees tab, because it will tell you. So availability right now is released from Friday, May 26th, which is the first day of the season for this campground, through June 9th. June 9th, this date is 6 months in advance from when I am recording this video. And so it's all open on a 6-month rolling basis. So tomorrow it will be open through June 10th. So if you're wanting to stay in the park on June 10th, then you would want to come tomorrow it's 8 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, 10 a.m. Eastern. You'll want to come down to this website and get your reservation as soon as the clock changes. So you'll want to make note of all of this before you actually need to book, hopefully well in advance of when your trip actually is. The other thing that I like that they share here is that this campground does have campsites available on short-term release. And so most of the campsites follow this 6-month rolling basis. So, if you're camping in July, then you'll want to make your reservation in January. But they do also have some that they hold back. You can click here. So it says it makes the following campsites available 2 weeks in advance. So that's really good. If you're making a last minute reservation, then you can come back 2 weeks in advance and there are some sites that are available. And this is true for all 4 campgrounds in Rocky that take reservations. And a lot of people don't know this. And so it's really nice, if you did miss that 6-month deadline and you're still hoping to camp in Rocky, you can keep checking back for cancellations. And you can also plan to come back and make a reservation at one of the sites that's open 2 weeks in advance instead of 6 months. So going back to the campsite list, then this will list out all of the different campsites. So you can go through this one by one if you want to. If you're making a reservation and you're seeing some availability, then you can just click on these individually and see if that campsite will work for you, and then just make your reservation. Especially if you're planning a trip in July or August or September, most of these won't have any availability. They'll all say reserved. And so you'll just want to keep that in mind. This NR means it's not released. So that probably means that this one is one that isn't released until 2 weeks in advance. These are probably the 2 weeks in advance ones. If I were to move all the way through the calendar, we would be able to see that, but that's why they're saying not released. One quick way to check to see if a site will work for you, especially if you're in an RV, is to come over to this equipment tab, and then you can put that you're in an RV or a trailer and apply. And then it will show you what is available, which sites will work for you, and what's available for you. Okay, so I'm going to click into this one just to kind of show you the process. Let's say that I did my research in advance and I'm staying in a tent, so this site will work. This is a tent-only site that doesn't list that you can have an RV or a trailer right here, so that's how I know that. But this site will work for me. This is fine. And I come in here and I'm like, oh, what do you know? These are the dates that I'll be here. Okay, so you'll click on the date, and I clicked on the 7th. This is when I'm going to want to be here, and it will let me reserve up to those 7 nights. And so I can do all the way through here. 6 nights, 7 days. So that's as far in advance as it will let me go. And then you'll see that this is not available, but if you hover over the not released, then it will tell you what date it will release. And so that's good if you change your mind, or if you're just trying to figure out what will be available for you. I like to hover over those dates just to see when they will release. But for this is fine. And so then I would just add it to my cart. That's why you'll want to log in and make your account earlier, because you don't want to have to be doing this on the morning of. Okay, so that's if there's already some availability, but let's say that you're showing up and everything is already taken and you're showing up at 8 a.m. for the next release. So what your screen is going to look at when you go in and you're selecting the site you want to try to get a reservation for is everything will say NR. And so everything will say NR, but then as soon as the clock changes to 8 a.m. Mountain Time, then the next date, say it's this, July 1st, this will turn blue. And then that's when you'll hurry and click. You'll click this, you'll click your dates, as far as you need, click them as fast as you can, and then click add to cart as fast as you can. So again, you'll already want to be logged in. You'll want to be on the page for the specific site that you want, and then you can click your dates and add to cart. Going back here, you can also do it from this page. And so again, let's say I'm going to move forward a little bit. So these have not been released yet. So when, say for tomorrow, when these ones open up, then they will just turn blue, and then you'll quickly select them and add to cart as fast as you can. What's nice about camping in Rocky Mountain is that you really don't need to move campgrounds to, get to all the parts of the park, especially if you're staying on the east side in Aspen Glen or Glacier Basin or Moraine Park. Those are really well situated, so you can just book a site there for the whole time you want to be there, and then you can drive to everywhere pretty easily. So that makes it really nice. Hopefully you really only have to go through this reservation process one time. But again, so you'll want to make your account before the date opens up. You'll want to get on and do some research to find out which sites will actually work for you. So I like to go through them all and write down which ones are big enough for our RV, just to make sure, and then I'll kind of star the ones that are my favorite, but at least I have a list of things that will work. And then, get on about 7:45 or so Mountain Time. You'll want to be 10 to 15 minutes early. Log into your account, go into the Rocky Mountain campground page, and just make sure that you know which campsites you're going to go for. And so as soon as that clock switches over to 8 a.m., you can hurry and select your dates for the campsite that you want. Click the Book Now button so that you can get that in your cart and so you can get that locked down. Okay, I hope that was helpful for you. Camping in Rocky, again, is just such a cool experience. It's really quiet. Again, you just don't have all those crowds of people staying in lodges or anything right inside the park. And so you feel like you're kind of part of an exclusive club that you get to be in there at night. You get to enjoy the stars and just have a really cool camping experience with the mountains towering over you. So lots of good options in this park. I wish you all the best at getting your reservation, and I hope that you have a great time at Rocky.